Oh, now
We're
it's
back.
recording. It was recording anyway. Do that again. Oh, look at that. Now, bring it over into the centre. Let's have a look at her. Oh, look at that. Look at those sweet
Oh,
lips.
has she got eyes yet? She has no eyes.
Oh, she's no eye.
Hold on a sec. Wait, and look at her name.
Now, she's her boobs are out. Let's have a
As
look.
usual.
As you, what's it say? Commit? What's it?
So Mimi.
So me. Oh,
And then she'll go into one of these. These are one of those famous boxes.
well, they look great now. So listen, just before we go any further, I'm
Okay,
talking
Kevin.
to my old friend Siobhán Gately.
Hi, it's me, old friend.
So she's yeah. So who originally came from
So
Galway,
I'm
really?
from Ireland.
Yeah, Galway, isn't it?
I was
Used to
born in
born
Galway,
in Galway, yeah.
and as my dad was transferred quite a lot for his work, he worked for Irish distillers.
Yeah.
So we finally came to Dublin, and then I went on to Paris, and I lived in Paris for about 13 years. I went to school there.
Yeah.
I met somebody there. I had children there, and I
In
started
France.
working in France.
Yeah. Okay. And so when did you decide to start doing art? Was that at school when you knew that that's what you wanted to do?
No, I always knew that. I especially we had a babysitter when we were kids.
Yeah.
We were living in Limerick, and she used to come and mind us, Eleanor. And I think I must have been about 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5. And she was drawing pictures for us. She was
Yeah.
drawing little birds. And I just knew then that's what I was going to be doing.
Right. And you've done that ever since. Yeah.
I've done that ever since, in spite of many obstacles, Kevin.
Okay. Well, that's a good start. So, like obstacles like
Yes.
what, for example? Getting
Well,
married and having children is one, I suppose, isn't it?
No, it's not the fact that I have children. It's that I think for a lot of people, especially my generation or my age, like the idea of for so many people that you might actually, it's not a job. It's not a what sort of, you're going to be hanging around in your bare feet, starving.
Starving in a garret.
And
That's
who
it,
the
yeah.
hell would want to marry somebody like you?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't.
You are jeopardising your prospects of creating the next generation.
Or of getting, a house.
Yeah.
Or a car, or
Yeah, but you did it though.
well, I did it because
Because
I did it thanks to different things that happened. In that I was when we came to Dublin, the school I was in, I went to Loreto and Dalkey, and I had a fabulous art teacher who was really encouraging, and so she was a kind of a window for me to what. She always encouraged me to around that, and kind of said, you should go down that road. But my parents weren't keen on it, and there was no way I was going to art school. That was, made
But-
very clear.
oh, that was made clear to you. You wanted to
I
go
was-
to art school.
Yes, it was made very clear to me
Yeah.
that I wasn't going to be going that way. So that kind of put me in the doldrums for a few years, in that, well, what the hell are you going to do?
Yeah.
So you do things like a communications course or a secretarial course,
Yeah.
and so I went down that way, and I kind of stopped doing anything creative. And then
For how long?
For a couple of years, because there was no,
It wasn't a path that seemed to be open to you.
it was kind of blocked.
Mm. Yeah.
It was kind of blocked, and So then I left Ireland, and it was around 20, and I came to France. I was kind of taking, you know, what a lot of people do. You just kind of leave, you go abroad. What are you going to do? Are you going to travel? Are you
Hmm.
going to? I didn't really know what I was going to be doing, but I knew I wasn't staying,
Yeah.
and there was nothing, nothing kind of very clear. So when I came to Paris in the beginning, like I was an au pair, like loads of people, but I loved it. I was just this amazing new freedom, and it was a great time to be in France. It was a great time to be in Paris, and I met loads of people. I did lots of interesting things. I
But didn't you go to school in Paris? You went to,
Yes, but
yeah,
not
so
quite yet, because at that stage I didn't speak French or anything, and I still didn't really know what I was going to be doing. And then I met my husband that you know,
hmm. Pierre
your
Claude.
other old
Yeah.
friend,
Yeah.
and so so we were kind of hanging out. There was nothing really serious yet for a while. Like I didn't know if I was going to be staying or what I was going to be doing. In any case, things got serious, Kevin.
In Paris or between you and Pierre Claude?
Between myself and Pierre Claude, and the longer I
Yeah.
stayed, the less I wanted to leave. But okay, so when you're in that situation, you know you're very young, everything's great fun.
Hmm.
But when I thought, okay, I'm going to stay longer, I've got to do something. Now's an opportunity to do what I want to do,
Yeah.
and you know, I didn't have to answer to anybody anymore. I didn't have to. I was, and you don't have the same. Like there's such a mass, so many opportunities in a city like Paris. There are so many schools. There's so many avenues. So that's where, like Pierre Claude and like I decided, right, I can go to art school.
But I mean, you
I
did.
can go to art school, and nobody's going to say no.
Yeah. Well, you did quite a dangerous thing because you married an artist. So
Yeah,
there's
but you
two.
don't think about those
There's
things,
there's
Kevin.
two of you in
Well,
it.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
dangerous proposition that is. Like
Well,
because there's not only the fact that you're doubling up your possibilities of making no money, but you know there's a possibility of kind of like a competitive air
it's
coming
very
into the.
competitive.
Yeah.
It's very competitive.
Yeah.
It's actually quite painful sometimes because you're both fighting for time or
Yeah.
space, or
Yeah.
not so much when there's just the two of you, but as soon as a baby arrives, or as soon as that kind of responsibility, you have to look after somebody else.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, if you want to be an artist, you have to be a little bit selfish about your time and space.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna get anywhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we never thought about those things. We were too young and too, you know, too just doing our thing. And
Yeah.
he was playing his music, and he was just starting out. I was like this. We were talking about this the other day, but Irish girls in those days, we were so wet behind the ears, so naive, so innocent, thinking we were sophisticated.
Yeah.
And comparing to the girls today, it's and so there we were. Like I said, okay, I'm going to stay. If I stay here, I'm going to go to art school.
Yeah.
And so to make so I did all sorts of jobs.
Yeah. Like
I
what, for
cleaned
example?
houses.
What
Huh?
did you do for a job?
I cleaned houses. I
Yeah.
minded kids. I looked after old people. I went on tour for Irish distillers in the Alps, flogging Baileys and Paddies and getting people to jig around the place.
I'd say that was quite lucrative. That would have been quite
Yeah, it
good.
is. It was quite well paid at the time.
That's the kind of thing
So,
that would actually sort of siphon you away from being an artist and devoting the time to your creativity. It's like a furry trap. You know, you start getting money in. You think, oh well, actually, this is easier than ploughing this
No,
lonely furrow. You were that
you can only
dedicated,
dig
really.
so much around the Alps, Kevin.
Yeah, well, it has its ups and downs.
And I hate
Yeah,
skiing. Huh?
it has its ups and downs.
It definitely does. And there's roundabouts, swings and roundabouts. Those hairpin bends.
Yeah,
Um, no, that helped me pay my way.
yeah, yeah.
And so that was good. And so I went to so what was my thing was, though, I had to find a way of earning a living in a creative way.
Hmm.
Like, what was the best way for me to approach a creative a creative uh, way of earning a living, of moving into that world,
Yeah.
learning, and but having skill sets.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah,
I did a silly thing, didn't I? I told
you didn't
I told
record
everyone
me.
I told everyone that to wear headphones. I wasn't even wearing them myself, so I don't know whether the sound is feeding back into the. So I'm going to change it. It's not that everything will be destroyed. It just might be as good quality as it could be. So I'm just
Oh,
going to put
did I
my
put one on
headphones
as
in.
well?
If you have them, it would be better, I think. All right,
Okay.
so we'll see from that. But anyway, look.
Okay.
So you were saying.
Sorry.
So
Oh yes.
if you're watching this and the sound has dramatically improved or changed, it's because we've both forgot our headphones to put them in. Because this is the first ever conversation piece podcast. So anyway, look, you were swanning around the Alps, selling
Yes.
booze to French people.
Singing, I can't even remember
The Irish
that.
songs.
Belfast City, rings on her fingers, bells on her toes.
Oh yeah.
And
Move yourself
getting
into
everybody.
move yourself into the middle there a second, a bit more. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, anyway, that helped finance a school I did called Corvisart, and it was a graphic design school.
Yeah.
And so that was my foot in the door, if you like.
Yeah.
Working on creative projects, learning about design,
Yeah.
illustration, then going on to the print world. So for a couple of years I did that, and and at the same time I started drawing again.
Yeah.
And began illustrating, and I went to a night course in a school in Montparnasse.
Yeah.
And I started just taking it from there. And then when I finished the school, Corvisart, I did an unbelievable but true. I got a job in this creative studio in the center of Paris.
Yeah.
Called Édition et Création Européenne.
Yeah.
And I had this manky portfolio, like it was so amateur, but I had a good heart and I was motivated.
And also, I suppose you're interesting. You're kind of a bit exotic if you sort of walk in with your Irish
sure
accent and big hair.
At that time, yes.
Yeah.
And at that time. So anyway, I got this job, and in this studio, this is actually something that happened that was fantastic in that. In those days, before the Macintosh was on the desks,
Yeah.
you had the studio. You know this from your past life as well, I think. The creative studio, where you had all the people working on the creative side of projects.
Yeah.
And then there was the studio d'exécution, where they would take the project, your brief apart, or your work, your artwork apart, and prepare it for print. In black and white, or they do it.
They put it on
by hand.
Yeah, put it on a camera, get film from the camera, then start stripping in colours.
Before that, like making a magazine. Do you remember the bromide paper and the how you used to actually construct a magazine?
Yeah.
When you had to calibrate the texts, or how did you size your photos, and then you had to send it to the client, and it was corrected, and it came back, and you had to take the whole thing apart again and reorder the photographic paper, and how did you do your illustration?
well, you sometimes hear people sort of talking about those days fondly, and how involved it was, and how sort of technical you had to be in order to produce this work and everything. But I thought it was horrible. I didn't realise how much I hated it until I left.
Oh,
You know,
what did you? What were you? What
well,
was your
I
job in it?
I took your artwork, this piece of a board which had a kind of a nice sort of blue coloured sort of flap on it, and then
Yeah.
the actual sort of text and the boxes in just monochrome, with a sheet of tracing paper over it with the colours marked on the tracing paper to tell you what to do, the instructions on it. But that's the kind of
Oh
thing that the
yes.
designers were doing,
Yes.
and then I'd produce the film, and it was just laborious, and it was full of pitfalls, and it was kind of soul destroying, and also it was thankless, because nobody ever talked to you again about the job unless you got it wrong, and then they really came down on you. And it was exorbitantly expensive, because for everything that you had to do,
Yes.
you
Yes.
had to there had to be taxis and couriers ferrying the stuff back and forth,
Yeah.
and everything just became monstrously expensive.
Yeah.
And then there'd be
No, it was a real
downtime.
luxury to print something.
Oh yeah, yeah,
If you were going to make a card or
yeah,
anything, it was you thought you really had to think twice.
yeah.
Like today, that question doesn't come up.
No,
Oh, one color, two colors, or
doesn't make
quadriplynic.
any difference.
It
Yeah,
doesn't make any difference now. And
yeah,
also the fact that you can do, with your digital printing, you can print off tiny quantities,
yeah,
whereas before you had stocks of wasted paper
yeah.
all over the place. No, no. Well, do I? No, I see where you were. You were further along the
Yeah,
line.
further on that, we
This,
were just before the
yeah.
printers got hold of the job.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So where I was the fun part. It was, designing stuff, drawing things. Uh, like I didn't even use an aerograph. I hated the aerograph, but there were guys who mastered the aerograph to do their, maquettes or their layouts,
yeah. Are
or
you talking about an airbrush?
airbrushing. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the airbrush, and all those things. I have to say though, even though I'm so glad it's not like that anymore,
Hmm.
it was I do think that it gave me a really. I'm still using stuff I learned then today.
Well, so am
I'm
I.
still,
But in terms
yeah,
of color, really, so an approach to color, that's what I'm using today. But there was an awful lot of stuff that we did that's just it's gone the way of sealing wax and barrel making, and I'm glad. It was just horrible.
yes.
And also the trade, that the end I was in was full of mad people, who were under so much stress, financially, and just the stress of the job, that everyone was kind of reacting in a kind of an insane fashion half the time. Uh,
Well, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so, because
yeah,
there was so much other people's money involved.
yeah,
If you got it wrong,
yeah.
if you got it
If you
wrong,
got, if you've got it wrong, and then there's a 5 colour press waiting for the corrections, and they don't have
yes,
another job to put onto the press, or they can't make
yeah,
ready in time.
yeah, yeah.
I
No,
mean,
no, it
because
was a whole different world.
yeah,
To like I still do graphic. I still do design, or working a bit still in that area. And I swear to God, I mean, it's not a bother to throw something out if it's gone
mm,
wrong.
yeah,
It really doesn't matter.
yeah.
The
I,
thing is, yeah, avoiding the presses to go all the time. But
and I have to say, for a while there in the early 90s, the quality dropped, because especially the quality of text, it dropped because people were printing out tracts of text on their desktop printing, or the laser printer with
yes,
their Mac,
yeah,
and then they were photographing that instead of a bromide, and the quality dropped. But now, the stuff that is produced now is much better than it used to be when it was
well, you can
a
barely tell the
handmade
difference. Yeah,
trade. Well, it's better. There's so much more they can do at the design stage, and it all goes to print. Whereas they used to have to give it to me. So if there was a cutout for you, for
yeah,
example, just looking at your hair, there's this kind of halo, and it's kind
yes,
of this kind of halo of light around your head, and
Yes,
you'd have to cut out a mask with a scalpel, you know. So a feature on Siobhán Gately would involve someone like me, so having to mask out your hair with a
I know.
scalpel, so you get people
Yeah.
with club heads,
Well, yeah,
you
sometimes
know,
was it with their
badly.
vengeance, you know?
Yeah,
Yes. Oh my God. Oh yes, I remember
yeah.
laughing our heads off, you know.
There were some dreadful sort of errors being made. Yeah. Total trapdoors. You fall right through them, and it gets to print.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. This is just my natural glow, Kevin.
Oh, you're emitting the light. It's not just a reflection then.
No, but I can turn off the light if it's too much.
Well, I mean, have a go. See what it's. I mean, I wasn't sort of commenting on the light so much. I mean, it's nice to have light on you. Kind of, it's just very kind of
It'll
bright.
be quite dull if I turn it
Well,
off, all
then
right?
don't turn it off.
All right,
It's
okay. I'm
grand.
just going to move a little bit. I'm sitting on my stool. So that's what I did. So I worked in this. Oh yeah. So they hired me, and in this company called Édition et Création Européenne,
Mm.
because they had nobody other than French people. So I was the European token, and I was
Yeah.
also the first woman to ever work in the creative studio.
Really?
Yes, there were no women there, and there never had been. It was all guys, and they were all young designers, and older ones too, like guys from le métier, as they say.
Yeah.
And there was the chef du studio, and so I arrived. And these guys, like, yeah, talk about exotic. So,
Yeah.
but they took me under their wing and they taught me everything.
Yeah.
Like everything I know, they taught me. And they used to say, one guy thought I looked like Marie Antoinette. Have you seen photos of Marie Antoinette? Anyway, so I have my big hair, and he was very nice. And I made them coffee every day.
Did you give them
And
cake?
no, but I did get them to go out on Friday nights for a drink. That was not in the culture. So on
Really?
Friday nights we'd go downstairs to the bar and have a drink on a Friday night. Like I introduced them to that culture, a bit of Irishness,
Lunchtime drinking. Yeah, liquid lunches. Yeah.
lunchtime drinking.
Yeah.
And so I stayed there for 4 years. For 4 years, 5 years, and so I was my job was I was managing or overseeing these book collections.
Yeah.
They were bilingual book collections. They were done with the university, so I had to do cover illustration, all the stuff inside, manage the making of the books, coordinate the authors. Like it was do the salons. There's a bit of PR involved as well. I had to kind of get the books onto the market, and
Well, that's a good
so
grounding because I mean, when I
yeah,
was in that kind of end of the trade, I did one thing. That was it. You know,
yes, no, I had
making printing plates
so
and
many things that I got to do.
stripping film.
So
Yeah.
mixing the creative stuff and bringing things out as well on, to salons, getting the books out onto the market, and actually learning about making books, and God Almighty, those books. Anyway, they're very old.
Yeah. I mean,
But no, but it was very. I learned a lot.
yeah,
I really did learn a lot, and I learned how to speak French.
yeah, and you did very well.
I did okay,
Yeah, yeah,
not too bad.
yeah. Well,
I have never taken a
did better
French
than me
lesson in
anyway.
France.
So,
No, I've never taken a French lesson. That's so I shouldn't be so proud of that, but no, I got away with it.
yeah,
I just learnt as I went along, and so then I had Una. Una's my daughter.
yeah,
So Una came along, and I knew I'd kind of grown out of where I was. I'd
yeah.
come to kind of the end of that line, and
I know. So
I had started.
you were looking for an opportunity so that you could, be a mother and work at the same time
Well,
in
it
close
wasn't quite
proximity.
that yet. It was I kind of seen everything, done everything in that company, and I had started illustrating again, or drawing and painting, and people were beginning to ask me for, because Pierre Claude, parallel to my shining path, he was plucking his banjo and making headway as well. And so he was...
That sounds like a euphemism, I have to say, Siobhán. Where is this going?
Well, because
you've spent too long in France, I think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I probably have time to come back. But so I started getting commissions from theatres and to do posters and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of worked. It was working at the same time. And so then I knew I wanted to change. I wanted a new challenge, to learn more. And at the end of the day, the whole thing was go freelance.
Yeah.
So I did have a trial run with the guy. We set up our own studio together to work in the cultural area, with all the, in France there's cultural centres all over the country. Every town has its theatre, and they all have posters, programs, cultural programs. So it's a
good
real
like that.
niche.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we started off together, but we really did not get on. It was just it didn't work out that well. So that forced me to go alone myself. And that was perfect. Like, Una was a year old. I got a studio office right near the house where we're living in Paris. And from there on, I started trying to make it. I started out, and I got a few jobs, and one job led to the next.
Yeah.
And sometimes we had nothing to eat. And sometimes we did.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I know the feeling.
I've been going ever since.
Yeah. I mean, do you sort of ever feel that it is a bit too much of a hand-to-mouth experience? Trying to ply your trade as an artist.
I think it is. But I think when you go into it, you don't really think about that.
No.
Today I see a lot of people doing the same thing, the younger people coming up behind us, and I find them really well organized, and those who are doing well are very well organized, are very tech savvy, are like they understand how to use their social media properly. They understand how to get their stuff out there, and those who are out there are doing quite well. I don't know how long for. I don't know. Like, it's all cyclical as well.
Yeah.
Cyclical. So I think, and they seem to be making. They seem to be more pragmatic about their money.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
They seem to have. It's not so much hand to mouth. It's hand a bit in the bank. Mouth, hand a bit in the bank. That's the feeling I get anyway. When I came here, there were only about 3. There was the art school and maybe 2 design schools. I'm in Nantes now. I'm not in Paris anymore. So we moved to Nantes when our second child was born. And when we came down here, there was the main fine arts school, and maybe 2. There was an illustration school, and maybe 1 or 2 graphic design schools, private schools, and 1 public one. But today there are about 30, and there is the International School of Design with schools here in Nantes, New Delhi, Shanghai, St. Petersburg. Like, the town is teeming with designers and artists.
It would seem like a strange thing to do, because you know, as we've just been saying, that it's a bit of a hand to mouth exercise, and to load the market with many more sort of hopefuls seems like an odd thing. I'm not talking about sort of pulling up the drawbridge because we're okay, because we're not. But I mean,
Sorry, I'm going
you know,
to
what are they all going to do? Stay in the middle, if you can. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of them will
yeah,
get jobs working. A lot of them might do it for a short time and move on to something else
yeah.
because it is hard. It's hard.
Stay in the middle of the scene if you can.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just
Yeah.
because it's going to sort of split
Oh, yes,
the
sorry.
thing down to halfway. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, I do. I think that's like I suppose it's hard to. I see. I think it works differently in Ireland as well. Like Ireland is much smaller.
Yeah,
Here is like a big country, and you have more opportunities
yeah,
to get jobs in those areas of
right.
design or and as artists, like the art world is it's also much bigger. I don't see it seems to be very different in Ireland because of the size of the place.
Yeah, yeah.
Like where is the outlet? How far is the outlet in Ireland? How many I think it would be quite hard to make a living in Ireland.
Well, it would be, but fortunately, we speak English, and that makes us part of the Anglophone world. So you can, with the internet, you can work from anywhere. And I think anyone who's successful does a lot of work abroad somehow. So we're really
Yeah.
in the American and Canadian and British world as well. Yeah, it would be much harder in France, of course. Because there are fewer francophone countries, I suppose. I don't
Well,
know. Maybe that's the
they
way it
go
works. I mean,
towards
France
the
has got 50
Anglophone.
million people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big
So,
country. Yeah,
you've got there are uh like if I'm talking about the design world or animation or all that world there is work. There's plenty of work for
yeah,
people. Or some people specialize in certain things. In the art world, it's like there seems you can make your living as an artist here. You
yeah,
can do it.
yeah. They've a
Not
diff-
everybody does.
they've a different system as well for taxation. I don't really
Yeah.
understand it, but I know you are taxed and you have to make a return, and we have to make a return as well. But we've got this artist exemption, which has been limited a bit in recent years. I think you're allowed to earn 40,000 without paying any tax or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't get anywhere near it anyway. But in France, you've got to pay into a syndicate or something, isn't it? You pay.
No, what you pay is, and it's actually going to change now, but if you work as an artist, okay,
Yeah,
so right, you have to work as an artist and you produce unique pieces,
yeah,
once-offs, okay, like
yeah,
a pièce unique. So, or an illustration, or so you pay your social charges
yeah,
to a thing called the Maison des Artistes.
yeah,
Okay, so that's your it's not a union or anything, it's just kind of your social security.
yeah,
It's where they collect your social charges, where you pay your contributions to,
yeah,
if I God forbid now, Kevin, if I become a widow or if I fall off
yeah,
the plank in the garden or if a paintbrush goes into my eye, for my retirement.
yeah,
So I contribute to my retirement fund. So, and that's obligatory.
yeah,
So you have to, so every year I have to do my returns,
yeah,
and depending on how much I've earned, I pay in rapport in ratio.
yeah,
Okay. And so, but what is about this is that the rates are a bit lower than if I was a lawyer, for
yeah,
example, or a doctor, where they are really creamed because they're supposed to earn loads of money.
yeah, yeah,
So but that is all ending now. That little but what is okay? What's interesting about that is though, when you this is how I felt it was that because for so long I was told, I thought, well, I'm never going to be an artist, or I'm never
Yeah.
going to earn my living I'm not allowed to do that. And the day I was told, oh, now you are part of the Maison des Artistes, because you have to prove you can make a living from what you do. That's how you got into it. And your work is original, there's a commission. Well, that was such a great feeling. Like it.
Yeah, you can't eat great feelings, though, can you? I mean, that it is, and it's nice. I live for the great feelings myself, but I wish I could sell a few more paintings.
It gave me the drive to continue.
Yeah,
and it gave me the motivation, and that it's a sort of a recognition that, oh yeah, okay, I did do what I did. I did make it.
And are you graded as an artist? There was something that somebody was telling me about.
Oh yes, if you're Kute, is it? Yeah. Well, it's graded. It's not that. It's the value of your work on the art market.
But who determines that? Do you do it yourself?
To be quite honest, I don't know. It depends on how much. If you're in a gallery, for example, or if you're in galleries or auctions, or so your work, as you progress in your career, your work becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, I'm just waving to my son, who's going to stick his head in the door.
Oh, yeah.
It's Friday afternoon, and hi, Sean. Hello. Come and say hello to Kevin. We're having a podcast. I'm doing a podcast with him. He's a dumb. How are you? Hello. Do you want to be in the little film?
Hello. Hello, Sean.
He can't.
He's ignoring me. Oh, of course, yeah, because you've got headphones on, yeah.
Sean, are you going to make a coffee? No. Oh, would you make me one? All right.
Yeah, would you make me one as well? Yeah.
He got his driving license.
Oh, very good.
And so he's been on a training course all week. So anyway, it's Friday here, and he's home.
Yeah. So, tell me about your work then. What are you sort of doing at the moment? What's your current project?
Well, my current project.
You showed me the one with the lady with her boobs out. Show it to me again.
Well,
Let's have a look. They're lovely little figurines that you've been making.
I'm going to try and get something without moving, okay?
Oh, yeah. That's okay. You can come off the screen for a moment.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, there's a dead spider. She was in there for a long time. I should have taken a photo.
It's like my studio then.
Okay.
Put her in the middle, and move her back a wee bit so that's great. That's wonderful. And what's her name?
Pierre Claude's girlfriend.
Oh, Pierre Claude, right, okay. Very good. And is she going to live in that jar, in that tin?
She's lived there for the last year or two.
But I mean, she'd be quite a good example of the kind of work that you're doing at the moment.
Well, okay, so this year I had a lot of commissions, and so I illustrated a lot for other people.
Yeah.
And so one project was with a cake company here, okay, called Little Britain Biscuits. And they make homemade cakes, and their business is developing year after year, and they had no identity. They had no. It was a bit all over the place. So we got together, and so with them, I've been working on their brochures. So it's all illustrated, but in colouring pencil, because it gives that sugary feeling to it.
Oh, right, okay.
And so you've got all these, so that's all illustrated. So everywhere you go, they have all their stickers are different colours that go on to their. So how can I describe my work? So if I say it's a mix of image, illustration, text, storytelling, for different clients.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll put up a couple of examples on the screen that'll be interwoven
Oh, right,
into the
okay.
video. Well, that's fine, but I mean, there's a lot of humour in your work, and
Yes.
a
So,
lot of it seems to be sort of autobiographical. I
well,
remember. I
it
just
could.
remember one piece that you did that made me laugh. Is that you said you had a little picture of a woman and it kind of looked a bit like you and got red hair, and you said, "I woke up one morning and I had no neck."
Yes.
You know, it's
Well,
charming and
life tells you these stories,
yeah,
Kevin.
yeah,
It is a bit autobiographical, but I love what really inspires, or a lot of it comes from observing people,
yeah,
watching interactions between people,
yeah,
and a lot of it comes from yes, your day-to-day life. You know, the
mm,
stupid things that happen to us every day,
yeah,
from a real source of where kind of all this came together was working with shows, working with people, dancers or actors or people who go on stage,
that's
musicians.
Pierre Claude's world, really.
Well, yes, but we're lucky enough to have worked, that's his work, but he has worked with
Yeah,
theatre companies, he's
yeah,
worked with big ones, small ones,
yeah,
and uh, and a lot of street theatre,
yeah.
okay, for years and years and years, like he worked in street theatre. So what do you, in that world is where you have humanity condensed almost.
Yeah.
You know, if you're with a theatre company, you have from the best to the worst, or the worst to the best of the human
Yeah.
condition,
Yeah.
and you have people who, there's always the finality of when you go onto stage,
Yeah.
you go on with your best foot forward, the show
Yeah.
must go on with your big smile, and you do your best.
Mm.
But as you zoom into these situations, often, for example, when you look at a stage decor up close, it's usually
Tatty.
pretty. It's not great. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very tatty, and
Worn
it's not
out.
slapdash,
Yeah.
but it gives its effect from the stage. Or sometimes you have people don't get on off the stage, but when they're on the stage, it all comes together,
Yeah.
and they produce something magical for an audience. Or you have dancing, where the dancers are, when it's a physical thing like acrobacy or dancing, where your body is in pain, like you can be in pain doing this, you know, how much training you have to do to get to a certain level,
Yeah.
but you're out there with your smile. And so all these things intrigued me for a long time, because I love being behind the scenes, the creative process for everybody,
Right.
and the things that people go through to produce this final result that's given. It's a gift this given to the public. And you could never imagine, what's been going on behind the scenes, and also the confidence that you have to have in the other person if you're doing something with them. You know, if you're playing with somebody, or you're acting with somebody, or you're dancing with somebody, or you're an acrobat. Like, it's the whole question of confidence in the other, and it goes into all loads of tiny.
Which is human relationships, isn't it? Because you see that all the time in your work, and it's
Yes, and that
mostly
is,
dealt virtually exclusively, as far as I can see. It's dealt with a good humour, and you know
yes, because
they're very
I
funny. Your
think,
illustrations and your artwork generally, because kind of hard to tell the difference. I think I think that my work is like that as well. Is that
yes,
my
yes.
anything that I consider my important artwork, it just looks the same as the illustrations I was doing anyway. So
Well, I
I
have to
can't
show you
escape
my
myself.
ceramic work, Kevin, because I veered off towards ceramics.
Yes, I remember. Yeah,
Yes, and that is kind of, I thought I would be doing something humoristic with ceramics, but
yeah,
as I'm such a baby ceramic artist, I don't master it enough to express humor in it, if you like.
Yeah.
But the working with the medium like that is teaching me, is bringing me down other roads where
Yeah.
I'm discovering another. It's not funny. It's I'm exploring what can you do with clay? It's amazing, what you can make. So
Yeah.
that's a whole new area that's opening up for me.
Well, I mean, the last time
Uh,
I saw you in France, like you had only just sort of ventured into that area. I know
mm,
we've met in Dublin since, but obviously
yeah.
can't see any of your work there. But I mean, you did show that little banjo figurine, and you showed the Mimi one as well at the
Yes.
beginning. I hope the camera caught it. Uh, but that I mean, that's very you. That is. So I can't really bring to mind the other stuff, that you
All
might have
right.
done.
Just can you hold
Of
for me
course, yeah,
just a
you can get,
second?
yeah, yeah, of
I'll
course, and
just
I'll
get
have
you
a look.
something.
Yeah, and this, of course, will be a another conversation piece, won't it? Yeah, what's behind you there is actually pretty good.
I'll just put these back in.
Back
Okay, so
again.
I have one thing here in the workshop. I have, I just have one thing here because,
Everything else has been sold.
no, it hasn't. I don't sell it at all. I'd be too embarrassed. But this is kind of a link between what I was doing and what I'm doing now.
Yes, I see
If
what you
that
mean.
makes
Yeah,
so. This little,
you did have those little pigs. I think when I was last in Nantes.
yes. So I like
What?
these little pigs
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you say that you wouldn't view it as sort
because
of
I thought this. I said,
proper
oh,
ceramics.
I think I'd like to make a vase.
Well, this is the
So I
thing. This is
started.
the thing. I mean, that to me is not sort of significantly, uh, you know, a departure from what you normally do,
No, yeah,
which is so
no.
you.
Yes. So I have to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
even if I try to escape myself,
Yes, you
I
can't.
come back
Yeah,
through
yeah,
the window.
yeah.
I don't think this is right. So, so yeah, no, I guess that's what it is. It's just observing. It's things, situations that a thing can spark off a whole series of like I got a plane recently. So these little heads, I'm making them. They're
Oh
going
yeah.
into little boxes because do you recognize this is?
Yeah, no eyes in it yet, but
Does it say anything to you?
is it supposed to
How
look
do
like somebody I know?
I'm sure if you've flown to France,
Oh,
when's the last time you got a
oh,
plane?
jeez, yes. Okay, I get you. Yeah, yeah. And the fact that she's no eyes.
Well, she will. She's going to have very thick eyebrows.
Yes. Okay. An orange
I'll send you a
complexion.
picture.
An orange complexion would go. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I guess that's it. And then so they're all very colorful. And then last year I started going back to black and white. So doing black
Yeah.
and white illustrations
Yeah.
that I really like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, does that mean that you're doing a lot of drawing? I mean, do you do a lot of drawing in your sketchbook as preparatory work, or do you just go
Uh,
straight to artwork?
no. I could have uh, I have sketchbooks, and I might have like I do sketches. I put down ideas,
Yeah.
and maybe one sketch will spark off a whole series of things. But I do actually what I do, Kevin. My sketchbook is literally when I'm on the phone
Yeah.
and A4 pages that I keep pulling out and just doodling while I'm on the phone.
Yes.
And as you know me, I do spend a lot of time on the phone. And do I go and I have my sketchbooks? Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
And I
So
noticed
and
something else I noticed in your studio when I was there as well. Is, this idea, and I started doing it myself after that because I thought it was interesting and useful. Is you cut out little bits of newspaper
yeah,
text, the headlines, and then you kind of splice them together so that they say something nonsensical.
yeah,
That was a really
I
good
love
idea.
that.
And then I kind of remembered that that's what John Lennon used to do in the Beatles.
Oh, I think
And
loads
maybe
of
even
people did.
David Bowie used to do things like that.
Yeah,
I never did it,
but
but yeah,
no,
now,
it's just really spontaneous.
yeah.
My mother, um, years ago, I used to be subscribed to the Saturday Times, the Irish Times on Saturday,
Mm.
and it was a present my mother used to renew for me every year. And
All right.
the thing about Irish and English newspapers is the paper is fabulous, and the quality of the newspaper.
Or the actual material itself.
Yes,
All right,
and
okay.
so I had done all, and when you cut out the the titles and you chop them up, or a bit of a title, or and that can spark off
Yeah, an
uh,
idea, yeah, or a
an
series of
idea as
ideas, yeah.
well. So and so I used to like those because you could stick it into the paint and
Oh, it would
it
hold.
holds quite a
Yeah,
lot. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay.
those I like this. The French newspapers are not quite as good for that.
All right, I didn't realise that now.
Yes.
Having never bought a French newspaper.
Have you not?
No, I didn't. Why? I can't even understand the Irish ones.
I learned French with Libération, the
All right,
newspaper
okay.
here. Mm.
Yeah.
But I was staying here. I don't have I had to learn French.
Yes.
Mm. You
But
don't have to.
no, this is true. I don't have to, but I should. I'm just absolutely so ashamed of myself that I'm not
So
absolutely
you should
fluent.
be.
I know, it's dreadful. Definitely mea culpa.
I
Slap
know
it.
in all the couples I know, all the bicultural couples,
Yeah.
it's always the girl who learns the language. The
It's
guys often don't.
it's the patriarchy at work. That's what I like to
Why don't you?
say. I know. It's because I turned out I wasn't as clever as I thought I was, and I just can't retain the information.
No, I think it's just laziness.
Well, it probably is, yeah. But listen, speaking of ideas and everything, and you know the generation of ideas, you
Yeah.
came up with an idea that you're working on currently, didn't you? What was that? Granny
Sister
pants,
Joan.
Sister Joan, yeah.
Sorry?
Is it
That's
the
it?
granny pants thing? What was it?
Yes, yes. So,
That is Sister Joan, isn't it?
yes, it's part of Sister Joan.
Yeah,
Okay. So, Sister Joan, okay, so you're in this boat as well, and a lot of illustrators.
Hmm.
So I've been working freelance now for 20 nearly over 25 years. So I have a stock of work
yeah. Go
over
on.
this
Yeah,
35 years.
yeah,
And so I've worked for hospitals, I've worked for local authorities, I've
yeah.
worked for festivals, I've got all sorts of stuff. And so so I own everything.
Yeah.
So all that work belongs to me. And I was thinking, what am I going to do with this? You know, am I going to sell it? Am I going to and
Make yeah.
so it was a kind of this thing was sorry, I was thinking about it. What am I going to do with this? Because in that work, a lot of it can be reused, can be readapted, can be updated, can be turned into little posters, can be. People are always asking me about different things. And,
Repurposed.
repurposed, if you
Mm.
like. And at the same time, I was redoing stuff in black and white, and I don't know how to explain this to you, but it was just a kind of a meeting of different things all came together at once, where Sister Joan is prints of my work. So in Sister Joan, you can go and buy reproductions.
So Sister Joan is a brand.
It's a brand,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
in the making, because it'll take a while.
yeah,
But yes, that's what it is. It's a
yeah,
brand. And in Sister Joan, there's different categories. And one of the first category the first thing that came out was a thing about big underwear, granny pants. And so all the things, they're all black and white. There's a touch of red, and it's all about big underwear. And we launched that one last year, and that did really well.
yeah.
Like, everybody seems to really love having big knickers. So, well, that led to other little things in black and white and little prints. And so now you can buy the prints here at the workshop or in Paris, in a boutique in Paris. They will go online.
And is there a website for
You'll be
Sister
able to get
Joan?
them on Instagram and on my
Oh,
website.
all
Yes.
right, okay.
So this is what we're going to do.
I'll put the link to your website at the bottom of this anyway, so
Oh,
people
very
can
good.
go and have a
Okay.
look
So,
exactly what
yes.
you do.
Well,
Yeah,
you find Sister Joan on Facebook and on Instagram, and and that separates all the print work, all the trash stuff that I want to do, because I draw for a political magazine as well, political satire, so I can put all
yeah.
that under Sister Joan and preserve the
The
artist.
artiste. Yeah, that is Siobhán Gately. Yeah,
So where if you have something by Siobhán Gately, it's an original piece, it's unique, it's
yeah,
there's no reproduction. And if you buy from Sister Joan, it's print, but it's limited editions.
yeah,
And so that's what Sister Joan is. So Granny Pants is doing really well.
yeah.
And so
But I
the
know why
next
you're doing
ones,
this, though. I mean, because we're reaching a certain sort of stage in our lives and our careers, and it's well, I've certainly felt it myself that it's time to start cataloguing, so that stuff can be accessed, and you're more or less kind of doing the same thing, sort of organising it such that it can be used because it is in fact your pension. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the only pension I do have. So it has to be catalogued and it has to be made available, even if it
well,
doesn't
yeah,
work.
well, I'm not sure it will work, but uh,
But it won't
what
work if you don't do it. That's the
well, there's
thing.
that. It won't
Yeah,
work if I don't do it. But the other reason was, okay, so I started my art career here in France,
yeah,
and I was working in the design field for ages, and then became more arty. But here, for a long time, it was really frowned upon if you uh, there was no it was frowned upon if you sold prints of your work. People, it was kind of this snobbery about the
yeah,
fact that, oh, you're an artist, oh, are they prints of your work, oh, that devalorizes your work, you
yeah,
shouldn't do that, oh, are they cards, oh, is that a t-shirt?
yeah.
And it was
You do get a bit of that here. Yeah.
yes, and you were kind of um, you weren't encouraged to go down that way.
No,
Either
because
you had
yeah,
to preserve, oh yes, this is
yes,
a Siobhán Gately poster,
yes.
or this is
And if you're
but
poor and dying of consumption in a garret, all the better. You know.
well, they don't care. I mean,
No, they don't care. Yeah,
yeah, they don't care. So, I've always enjoyed the commercial side too. I
yeah,
don't. I've never, but it was a problem because I was always put off doing that when I thought it was a logical thing for me to do.
yeah,
And so finally, in the last few years, because of internet, because of social media, because of Facebook, because of Instagram now, people want it, and why should I care? I like doing it, and it gives me this other persona that I can play with.
yeah. There is a kind of a
And
democratization going on because of
yes,
the internet.
yes,
You know,
and hopefully, but you see, also you spoke about pensions earlier on.
yeah,
In Ireland, because you don't have to pay tax, you don't
get a
do
pension.
contribute to a pension
Yeah,
fund.
yeah. That's it.
So
Yeah.
I've
There
been
isn't. Well,
paying
there isn't
into
anything to contribute, but you're right. That's it. That's the corollary of not paying tax.
yeah.
You don't
So
get
I have
anything either.
always done
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I mean, I had no choice. I had to do it anyway.
Yes.
So
There is the state pension, of course, which is minimal, but I don't know whatever it is,
yeah.
175 per week or something. I don't know. I'm afraid.
Well,
I'm afraid. I'm
we've
afraid to
got
look.
loads of recipes for. You
Yeah,
might start
lots of
using
recipes.
snails.
But yeah,
The frog's legs.
nettles and snails. Yeah,
Well, no, I do think it's a problem. People don't think about it, and
and I
thanks
didn't.
be to
Yeah.
goodness they do force you to contribute to that here because. So anyway, but yeah, it's also at this stage of your career. That's what I thought. I have this stock of work, and what's going to happen to it? It just goes into a bin when I die, or
Yeah.
people
Oh
just
yeah.
throw
Well,
stuff out.
which brings me to: have you made was it catalogue raisonné?
No.
No. Here, hang on. Where is it?
I'm young, Kevin.
Yeah,
I'm not
of
going
course.
anywhere yet.
No, but this is the kind of thing that you should have had anyway. And
Let's see.
I'm just as bad. I never had it anyway, but recently I've started to put together my catalogue raisonné, all the paintings that I've actually sold and where they went.
Oh
Because
my God.
because
Yes,
yes,
I do have them in my. I don't have them. I don't have it on my in a catalogue like that. But
yeah.
in my accounts, every painting that's sold, everything I've ever sold is
Recorded.
it's in my comptabilité.
Digitally,
Yes.
get it on paper.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
Yes.
sure as eggs. What happens if you do pop your clogs unexpectedly? Nobody's going to be able to access it. So your
Yeah.
catalogue raisonné will be useless to your estate. I suppose that's
Yeah.
the thing.
Oh right. Okay. Yes. Good thinking, Kevin. Good thinking.
Yeah.
So are you spending a lot of time doing that?
Yeah, because I never. But hang on, I'm so disorganised that I've had to go back over 25 years
Oh my God.
of sales trying to remember where paintings went. So anyone looking at this podcast, if you bought a McSherry in the past, please get in contact. All I need to know is where it went,
Yeah.
and that's it. Because you never know. Maybe we'll become stratospheric, Siobhán. And post
We're
mortem, and then we'll we can have a show in the Tate. How do you know? How do you know it's not going to happen? You don't. You don't know whether it's going to happen or it's not. So you may as well be organised.
No, but you could have a little retrospective.
And that, dear viewer, is where Skype suddenly cut us off. So we couldn't actually discuss anything else. So I sincerely hope you enjoyed looking at this conversation piece podcast, and I hope to see you again soon. So if you'd like to subscribe and maybe like the video, it would be much appreciated, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. And any links to Siobhán's work and her websites and everything will be in the information section below. Thank you.